I always hate it when the video gets in the way of what you're trying to click on. So real quick, if everyone could just make sure they're muted, that makes it a lot easier for those presenting. Thanks so much. I appreciate you all being here today and taking time out of your really busy schedule. I want you to take note of this picture that is on our 2021 impact report, and I'll talk about this a little later. So I'll be making sure to send this out to you all. This is just a recap of our mission, our purpose, and so you'll get this. I probably won't spend the time of reading all of this. I thought I would start out with just talking about what we did in 2021. I oftentimes get asked what was the last year like, and it's been a bit of a wild, exciting ride for our organization. A lot of time was spent on COVID relief for all the businesses that we represent. As many of you know, FARE stands for Food, Agriculture, Restaurants, and Establishments. Establishments meaning beverage establishments. We really represent everything from field to fork. So our farmers, our ranchers, our producers, our independent restaurants, bars, and retailers. So a lot of time was spent passing the Restaurant Revitalization Fund. This last year, we partnered with the Independent Restaurant Coalition. It was actually 19 months ago to pass the $28.6 billion Restaurant Revitalization Fund, which is a grant that was available to hard-hit food and beverage establishments. They really needed our help, and the pandemic sort of rocked their world. So we were there to work with the IRC, and we are continuing this work. It hasn't actually finished. We have 699 Idaho establishments that did not receive funding that thought that they were going to get the grant. The grant fund actually ran out. We originally asked for 120 billion. And so we are working on that refill right now with the IRC. You probably saw a push that we did yesterday. I emailed all of you for our day of action to really reach out to Senator Risch and Crapo and let them know that businesses are still struggling. Even, you know, we're still in the pandemic. We have labor shortages, increased wage hikes, supply chain disruptions, and the list goes on. So anyway, that's still the work that we're continuing to do. We officially launched FARE in August of 2020, and we've grown really quickly. We're at 255 members. And why does the number matter? Because it makes our voice amplified and we're able to accomplish more. When we called one of our senators' offices just to talk about the Restaurant Revitalization Fund, the number they repeat back to us is our membership base. That's what they care about. And so it allows us to either reap financial benefits by discounts that we are looking into, or really make some changes within their industries. Some of the benefits, I'm not going to cover all of the member benefits. I have a slide in here, so I'll just make sure I send that out to you all. But Nice Healthcare was a phenomenal healthcare program that we launched this last year. Anytime we have 500 humans in any given area, they actually place 2 nurse practitioners in the area. It starts out with a telehealth call. You have an app on your phone, and then if they need to see you in person, they actually come to your home. This is a value add for our employers. It costs $28 a month. And so let's say that employee said, we just actually had a testimonial that we did on Facebook this last week where Brick's Craft House got Nice Healthcare for their employees. The same day that employee who was sick for 2 weeks and was misdiagnosed downloaded the app, and by 11 a.m. that nurse practitioner was actually in her home and spent 45 minutes with her. We are still looking into health insurance. We don't know if that's doable within the framework of our organization, but just know that I will be looking into that this next year and spending some time to see if that's a benefit we can also add. We have significantly decreased credit card processing rates. They're so low that we're actually not allowed to post them. If any of you are interested, I can actually put my email in the chat box. Any of these benefits, if you're interested, just feel free to shoot me a quick email and I'll connect you with VersiTech, and they can do an analysis. And there's other things. We worked a lot on the employee tax retention credit this last year. We worked with an accountant who specializes in employee tax retention credit. This was such a useful tool that we provided to our members that actually saved them thousands and thousands of dollars, and it still continues. And then a new one that we just launched was a complimentary 30-minute legal consultation. We have music discounts, among other member benefits, close Facebook group where we can connect with other independent food and beverage owners. And also it's a resource for us to let our members know what we're up to. And then this last year was advocacy, not only on RRF, but we also hired a public affairs advisor. So gratefully, FARE Idaho has a lobbyist, which is so nice, to help us in state policy. And when we partnered with the Independent Restaurant Coalition, that benefits us in that they have lobbyists on a federal level. So we're kind of covered in both of those with our restaurant and bar work. And then education. So we hosted over 15 roundtables. Last year, I felt like it was just a great opportunity for our members to connect. They were really, I mean, I think the pandemic made everyone feel a little bit lonely. So it allowed us a safe space for business owners to come together and really just figure out what in the world they were going to do, complain, brainstorm, and that kind of thing. But this year is a little bit more tailored. We hosted a livestock processing roundtable that was our most well-attended. A lot of smaller ranchers have issues with livestock processing. So that was a well-attended and engaging conversation that lasted 20 minutes over the end of the roundtable time. A lot of work on the Restaurant Revitalization Fund, a lot of roundtables on the employee tax retention credit. For example, I went to Leadership Idaho Agriculture class and heard about some suicide risk with dairy farmers. Lauren Port and myself immediately put together a roundtable, and she offered to help some of those ailing farmers with employee tax retention credit help, so that hopefully they could get some financial resources and help them get through the year. Labor shortage with the Department of Labor. We also had a roundtable about supply chain disruptions. We think when we educate our members, that better prepares them for the future. So that's our goal. We also launched Project FARE, which I know Dave will chat about a little bit later, and that's super exciting. That's our 501c3. FARE Idaho is a 501c6. FARE is our sister organization that really tells stories of food, farming, and beverage through photography, written words, so articles, and video. We think that there's no better way to connect people to all the cool offerings that are happening in Idaho than to educate them on the people and the restaurants and the bars behind in all of our neighborhoods and in our community. I was accepted into Leadership Idaho Agriculture Program. That takes me away from the office 1 week per month. It's been a real amazing opportunity. It's also been kind of challenging just to get away, but super exciting opportunity where I get to learn about Idaho agriculture and learn how to better advocate on behalf of Idaho agriculture. The tools and resources have really helped me. When I stepped into this job, I had a fear of public speaking. I kind of still do. You'll notice I'm talking fast, but it's actually an opportunity for me to do speeches and caucuses. And I learned that if I actually take a breath every once in a while, it won't be this dramatic intake of breath at the end of a couple of sentences. So that's been good for me. That picture that I showed you at the beginning, this is one of my favorite projects because we were awarded the Boise Arts and History Grant. So we get to tell the stories of independent food and beverage businesses that were so concerned they would have to shutter their doors or close their doors, but they opted to give back. So that first picture that you saw was Rolling Tomato, who's a FARE member. She is a volunteer-based organization that sources food and delivers that product to the food insecure. This prevents it from also going into our landfill. She is a pretty incredible human being. And Bardenay reached out when the pandemic hit and said, look, we got all this food. Julie came by, grabbed the food, but the woman on the right of the picture is actually one of our farmers that is also a FARE member. So it's pretty amazing how together we do, we benefit the community and give back. Quick here. We have a newsletter. We have about 1,800 subscribers. We spend a lot of time on these newsletters. So thanks to all of you that actually open it, because it takes some time, but we want to make sure that we get out the word about what we're working on. It has a really great open rate. It's, I think, about 35%. The last one was at 44%. It's always nice when you put that much work into the newsletter and try to educate folks that they actually open it. So thanks a bunch. And then we received the USDA Local Foods Promotion Grant through the USDA. And this is actually to host classes on the art of butchery. We're trying to think about livestock processing and the issues that plague Idaho and really the nation, and think outside of the box. And so one of those was through education. It's not always going to be policy work, right? It's going to also be education. We're excited about this because we get to travel the state, visit some cool places, teach classes, but then also have video assets available as a resource to our farmers, to our ranchers, to our chefs, to their employees, livestock processors too. So we'll be able to utilize these classes. So what are we going to do in 2022 after that big year? So we're committed to still creating a more resilient food system. I'll let Rocky step in for a minute and talk about our Field to Fork event that's coming up, as she is our event chair.
Thanks a lot, Katie. I'm really excited for this event. It'll be our first annual FARE Idaho Field to Fork Festival. It's scheduled for Friday and Saturday, November 11th and 12th, 2021. We had to reschedule, obviously, because of the COVID surge. It will take place at Jump in downtown Boise. It's a beautiful facility. And thanks to the fine people at Jump, we have the ability to have the top 2 floors of Jump for free at no cost to FARE. So we're very excited about that. We've also already been able to raise sponsorship dollars. We have a title sponsor already, Charlie's Produce. Even with having to move the dates, we have been fortunate in being able to retain sponsorship dollars, and largely because there's not been an event of this type before in the state of Idaho. So with this inaugural event, we're hoping to launch an annual showcase of our uniquely Idaho food and beverage industry that showcases FARE's work and membership, including keynote speakers and engaging panel discussions that feature farmers, ranchers, livestock processors, wine, beer, and alcohol makers and distributors, along with restaurants, bars, basically the whole Idaho food chain from field to fork. And we're going to try to not bite off more than we can chew this first year, but we do anticipate making this a very memorable event and one that we can build on annually. There's a lot of variables with COVID, but our hope is that by late fall, we'll be able to be in a good position to bring in a great keynote speaker or two, as well as have some lively, interactive, and productive panel discussions while showcasing and sampling booths and locally grown and produced food and beverage. So we're very excited. That's November 11th and 12th at Jump in downtown Boise. So I hope everybody, anyone that wants to volunteer to be on that event committee, please let us know, because we will need a lot of volunteers. So put your name in the chat if you're interested in joining our event committee.
And it's super fun to go to that one too. So, and then, you know, the connection piece is going to be huge. We, you know, for FARE Idaho, our goal is to not only advocate on behalf of our members, but also connect producers with retailers and then promote everything that we have to offer here in Idaho. So change makers. Number 2, it's time to change the system. I know it can get a little frustrating. So what does advocacy look like from a policy perspective in 2022? It's really, like I mentioned, refilling the Restaurant Revitalization Fund, taking a look at Idaho agriculture and what we can do to advocate on behalf of them, our farmers and ranchers. Farmland Protection, we've partnered with the American Farmland Trust. We'll be hosting a roundtable in February to talk about conservation easements. I know that's a big issue because we're losing farmland very quickly. Licensed beverage work, Dave will cover that later, and livestock processing, Amy will get a chance to talk about all that we've been doing in our farm and ag committee too. So relief, we will continue to work on pandemic relief and pass the restaurant revitalization fund refill to ensure that those 699 folks actually get the grants that they thought they would. We will continue to seek additional financial savings for our members. I'm also, like I mentioned, no commitments because I'm still working on it, but looking into a health insurance program under FARE. So I'll be doing some research on that and really just continue to help businesses respond and adapt to the challenges of the pandemic aftershocks. I know we all have a lot going on right now with all the issues that came after the pandemic. Just when we thought we were kind of out of it, we're still very much in it. So I think one of the most important things I realized in this role, and something I just kind of love to do, is build community around our organization. We do have our membership base, and that is very much our why and motivates me to get up and work hard every single day. But I also think that we have an opportunity to reach out to organizations and groups that are working on a shared goal. Because we are a bipartisan trade association, we have an opportunity to really meet people in the radical food and beverage center and create change. So we truly want to be a force for good. And it's been a pretty awesome experience to be a part of it. I think sometimes there's hesitancies for nonprofits to partner together or whatever. And I just, we're just going to keep moving forward and try to build a larger community around our organization. So, and for some reason, the next slide is not going. Okay, so I'll send these benefits out. I had in the survey, we had some folks that said, hey, I don't know about the membership benefits. I'll be sending this out to you. It's also on our website. And then lastly, I want to thank our members. I think about when you all joined us and you're like, shoot, I guess I'll join this membership-based organization. I don't know what FARE Idaho is going to do. And I mean, like I mentioned, you all are our why and why we work so hard every single day. But I'm so extremely grateful that you believed in us. So, and we believe in you. And thank you so much for being a part of it. And I would be sad if I did not thank the board. They're pretty incredible. I know during COVID, we spent a lot of hours meeting, a lot. And we all wanted to build this organization to do right by the food and beverage industry, especially our independents, and create a more resilient food system. So a couple quick shout outs, because every board member is so awesome, but I want to thank Rocky. She's been there through everything, answers my calls whenever I holler at her. She's our events chair and our secretary. George Scandalous, boy, he exhausts me, because when he comes into town, he goes and visits every single FARE Idaho member, and we just walk the streets, whatever town we're in, and talk about employee tax retention credit. And that guy has saved our members thousands and thousands of dollars. Melinda, I've just adored working with Melinda this last year. And then Dave Crick, I want to mention this. Dave, you might want to cover your ears. He works tirelessly for this organization. He probably puts in about 15 hours a week. This historical license proposal that he's talked about, he's really been working tirelessly to spread the word and talk to folks and get good perspectives from all of our members. So thank you so much to all of our board members, and thank you, Dave. So with that, I will pass it over to Mr. Dave Crick, who's our president of FARE Idaho and also owns Bitter Creek, Red Feather, and Diablo in downtown.
Thanks everybody for being here, and thanks to Katie for all that she's done with her leadership of this organization, and I think just the work that she does to make sure that the staff stays focused and has impact. So I want to make sure we have lots of time for questions and for some of us to just listen to some of you. So I'm going to go really quick. I wanted to make sure everybody saw here this chart, which is all of our committees. So I'm excited people are like jumping in and saying, hey, I'll help with that committee. We've got a number of different committees that are active. Our governance committee, which is headed up by Melinda, as Katie mentioned. Our executive committee, which I oversee. Our membership committee, which is headed by George and Rocky. I include you in that because I think you guys shared that over this past year. And I know that, you know, as we move forward, we're definitely looking to add people to that committee and add more leadership capacity to it. Our Farm and Ag committee, which is just the amazing Amy Matthias in that group, continues to grow and I think continues to have impact for us. Our public affairs team, which I oversee and is definitely looking for, you know, someone to replace me because we need a better leader. And our fund development work, which is a committee that we want to get going this year, that we're working in partnership with our sister organization, Project FARE, to expand on. So we need people who like to engage in fund development activities. I'll let you flip me, Katie.
Yeah, and I think next up might be Melinda.
Yep. And before Melinda goes, I just want to say this is our board members from the past year, but also it includes our new slate. And I'll let Melinda talk about that really quick. But I think as Katie suggested, you know, it's like organizations like this rely on volunteers. Board members are volunteers. So these people have all volunteered their time over the past year to do what we've done. So I think just hats off to this group, and you might just read through it. It's hard to read, you know, through all these things on these slides, but this one's not that hard. It's just names. And with that, I'll let Melinda go.
Thanks. Okay, so thank you all for participating in our board elections. We had 166 eligible voters. We had 76 members of that 166 vote. We needed 59 for a quorum, so our election results stand. We had a 98.7% approval of our slate of candidates. So most of the slate was original organization board members who were being re-elected. And in addition to those folks, I want to welcome 2 new directors who are really brand new to our boards, participating on our board, Nicholas Purdy of Peekaboo, Idaho, and Josh Larson of Moscow, Idaho. I think that's all I've got.
Yeah, and I would add to this, thank you, Melinda. Melinda does a great job heading up our governance committee and overseeing our nominating committee. We are, you know, even though it looks like we have quite a few board members, we still want to add at least a couple of more. And, you know, there's some specific areas we're targeting. One is geographic. So I think having someone else from North Idaho would be really helpful, the Coeur d'Alene area, and somebody else from even further east, even though we added Jen from Pocatello, which has been just terrific, getting somebody maybe from Idaho Falls or a second person from Eastern Idaho so that they feel represented, because we are a statewide organization. And we have decided this year to add distributors as members. And so we're looking to add a distributor to our board. So if you have friends that would make good board members, please let us know. Katie, you can flip it. There we go. Project FARE. Going to talk about this really quick. Katie's already talked about it. We as a board, we voted to support the formation and incubation of a sister organization for us, which is a 501c3 that is focused on telling the stories of food from farm to table. It's really, I think our intent with this is to be a media organization to highlight the things that all of you do, from farm products to food producers to food and beverage products that are represented both at the producer level and at the retail level. So like, you know, think of what Eater does and their storytelling with new chefs and new restaurants. We can see all sorts of storytelling. So as Katie's mentioned, that group has already hired an editor and has begun the work of getting that storytelling activity going. It's, you know, it's a slow process, but the other advantage to having a C3 and a C6 work as partners is that we just think it increases our ability to have more sustainable income streams. One of the problems with the membership organization is we rely on those memberships for dues. And what we don't want to end up in a cycle of is having to increase our member dues and constantly seeking new members just to be able to have enough money to expand. So finding ways to expand our ability to increase our revenue is important, and adding a C3 that has different ways to produce income, we think just gives us more viability long-term. So we're excited about this. And you can skip me forward. The public affairs work that we're doing, this is a really busy slide. So I'm just going to hit the highlights. Katie's mentioned most of them. We have a public affairs member level now, which is really important because our public affairs work is not free. To, I think, be effective, we know we need to have a lobbyist on our team, and that initial group of members who stepped up and said, hey, we'll become public affairs members and pay a little extra, allowed us to get Roger Batt hired, who is a terrific advocate for our industry. He's kind of a unicorn in that he has a lot of experience in two areas that don't necessarily go together: licensed beverage and agriculture. He's an old farm family veteran. He's got a lot of connections throughout the state house. He represents the wine commission, so he gets involved in both agriculture and licensed beverage issues. And he's been extremely successful with the wine commission in their work to impact their need to change Title 23 over time. And so, and he's just a super easygoing, good to know guy. So we're pretty lucky that we were able to secure him and get him going with our work. And for those memberships, I've listed some of the benefits here. And we're still working to get some of those up and going, but we are beginning to hold those virtual meetings with Roger. And as Katie may have mentioned, I can't remember, every other week, her and I are going to host what we call, I think of it as office hours. I'm not sure how else to put it, where we are wide open on Zoom, where any of our members or anybody that's interested in our public affairs work can come and jab at us. So if they like or don't like it, at least they know what it is we're doing and what's going on with it. Our big focus as a public affairs team, Katie's talked about much of this. I think the big one on a national level was our work with the IRC to refill the Restaurant Revitalization Fund. This work is not done until it's done. I think most of us we're gonna die getting this done. What's great is that through our national network that Katie and George and I all participate with, they just have a rock star federal lobbying team in Washington, D.C. They've got several public affairs groups that are able to harness the power of communications and relationships with people that we couldn't imagine. Like yesterday, we had a day of action, and I was surprised. Like one of the first tweets I saw of the day was Nagamata Sue, the NFL defensive lineman, who happens to also be a restaurant owner down in the Florida area, advocating for the RRF. And that was through his connection with someone at the Independent Restaurant Coalition. We've got people like Tom Colicchio and Sam Cass, who used to be the former Obama chef that regularly attend our meetings. And in fact, next week's meeting, we get to meet with Senator Elizabeth Warren. So it's just been great having that level of involvement. And FARE today was again called out by that group for our work here in the state on our National Day of Action. It was actually noticeable. Little tiny Idaho actually made an impact yesterday. There were over 5,000 calls made to Congress on behalf of the Restaurant Revitalization Fund, and Idaho was disproportionately significant in that. So thanks to all of you. So anyway, we are continuing to work on that. We do think that the next big opportunity to be able to get that fund passed is going to be in the continuing resolution as an additional set of funding that has to happen. It's the funding of the government. They have to get it done by February 18th. It has to be bipartisan. So we have been told by our champions that that's what they're targeting, and happy to answer questions about that outside of this. In Idaho, our big focus is bill to create a historic liquor license that allows any business that's been in business for 25 years that is in the same location, that has had the same operating entity for 25 years and that has had a quota license in place for 25 years to be able to get a special permit non-transferable license. Our official position within FARE is that we don't feel like there should be any changes to the liquor license policy as it stands within the quota with Title 23 or with the quota system, unless it doesn't impact the market value of people's existing licenses. That was not very elegantly said, sorry. There has been many attempts to take down the quota system over the years, and regardless of how people feel about it, there's a lot of people heavily invested in their liquor licenses, had to borrow against their homes to get them. And we just want to make sure that we advocate for change that doesn't impact their investment that they made in those liquor licenses. So while we'd love to see more licenses on the market, we don't want it to come at the expense of people who have invested in those licenses. So I think it's important to mention that the idea for this historic liquor license bill came from one of our members, Ted Challenger, and when he and I first talked about it, I think we both recognized that it was a unique approach to sort of threading this needle. And we have been told by almost everyone we've talked to, from the governor's office to the chairs of both the Senate State Affairs and the House State Affairs, and many other people who work in this field, that they think it's the most creative approach they've heard in many years. So they applauded us for it. So thank you, Ted, for that work you did to come up with this. And then we've got livestock processing work that I will pass to Amy to talk about.
Great, thank you, Dave, for that overview. So the livestock processing conversation came out of our Farm and Agriculture Committee. I'll do a plug that if you're interested in joining that, we are still seeking additional committee members. We are primarily made up of farmers and ranchers, but we have a few other stakeholders involved in the group as well. And we knew before COVID that there was a barrier with livestock processing, specifically those small scale producers getting into processors to sell their meat at farmers markets, to local restaurants, direct to consumer, et cetera. COVID exacerbated that and made it extremely difficult for these small and mid-scale producers to get in for their livestock to be processed. So we saw it as an opportunity to not only help our farmers and ranchers in the region, but also help our retail stores, our farmers markets, and our restaurants that were interested in sourcing local, but we're really seeing a shortage of those products. So in December, we hosted a very well-attended roundtable to get insight from our members and collaborators on what aspect of livestock processing do they want us to hone in on. And it was a lot of people said that they were interested in a state inspection program. So the ISDA would inspect processors in the state of Idaho for intrastate sales. So we are looking into what that would look like here. Do we need a draft legislation? What does the funding look like? Who wants to support that? We have some meetings lined up, and we're really excited to take the next step in addressing this and hopefully reduce that barrier. So that's the main focus of livestock processing, but we are also we received a local food promotion grant from the USDA to do some educational workshops that will focus on chefs and restaurateurs on how to break down whole animals or subprimals to have more nose to tail options in their restaurants, as well as to ease some of that burden from farmers and ranchers who could sell larger pieces of animals to those buyers. And we are also going to be putting together a resource list for those existing facilities in the state to be more accessible to farmers and ranchers, so they know who's already playing at the table, who they can go to process their animals, who's great at making sausages, et cetera. So I think that's my update, and I will, pass it back to Katie.
Thanks, Amy. Appreciate that and all your work on that too. It's been pretty incredible, the attendance, and just to see what we can do when we start working together with all these farmers and ranchers. So thanks. I want to thank our sponsors. These sponsors, we couldn't do it without our sponsors. And so many thanks to these sponsors that have contributed to FARE Idaho at the $5,000 annual rate. Like I said, we couldn't do it without them. And so thank you very much. And with that, we will take it off screen share. And then if you have any questions for us or our organization, please don't hesitate to put those in the chat. If you want to raise your hand, then I can call on you. So now's the time to ask questions of us. This might be an easy meeting. All right, I'm going to give it about 30 more seconds.
I'm hoping somebody has a couple of questions.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How many people have applied for the employee retention tax credit that own a restaurant?
Yeah, just raise your hands.
Who hasn't applied?
In the process of.
Okay, because every restaurant, well, I mean, basically.
Not only just restaurants, we have restaurants, bars, farmers. This impacts every sector we represent, so.
Yeah, and I mean, restaurants and bars for sure almost automatically qualify. I was in a webinar with this company called Tri-Merit that has done 1,700 employee retention tax credits for their clients, all across the country, and they said that they haven't found yet a restaurant that hasn't qualified. There might be one, but they haven't found one that hasn't qualified, which basically means that you would get back 70% of wages paid to an employee, up to $10,000 per employee per quarter for the first 3 quarters of 2021. So unless you're independently wealthy, that could be a lot of money for most restaurants. And it's not just wages that you paid, it's gross wages. So tips also count.
Yeah,
And just to clarify, that's regardless of whether or not you got the PPP loans. So that does not disqualify you. In fact, it only augments.
yeah, and I see a couple of nonprofits on here too, so it's applicable to nonprofits as well.
And if your accountants tell you that you don't qualify for it, I would verify that, because we have had people that are board members whose accountants told them that they don't qualify for it. And then they verified, and sure enough, they qualified for it. So it's a lot of money.
Did you say tips qualify?
Yes, they do, sir. So for example, if you paid somebody $2,000 and somebody decided to tip them $8,000, which means they made $8,000 that quarter, you get $7,000 back on that $10,000 in wages that you reported for them.
See, I will testify that CFOs don't know, some CFOs, because I had my CFO look at this and he said, well, it's not even worth it. I listened yesterday on our conference, and we went ahead with I forget her name, the company that you guys suggested on FARE. So yeah, I'm interested to see if
Lauren Port.
basically if some CFOs are just very unaware. So I'll let you guys know.
As are accountants. Accountants are very unaware as well.
Ted, I tend to use really colorful language to describe their ineptitude, which today I will use the word ineptitude because it's so frustrating. I mean, I get off the phone with people on a weekly basis. I just talked to a lady in Juneau that's about to save $125,000. I just talked to a guy in Seattle about 3 months ago that now wants me to take me out to a nice steak dinner next time I go to Seattle because he saved $266,000, and their accountant told them that they don't qualify for it. Oh, and my own mother's accountant, my family owns 11 restaurants in Southern California, my aunts, uncles, and their accountant told them that they didn't qualify for the 3rd quarter. And I had to get in a fight with him over Christmas. And sure, but I mean, we're talking about, like, I think cumulatively all my family's restaurants, like my family members, I think they're saving in the neighborhood of $685,000. It's a lot of money. And it's staggering how unaware people are of this being out there. You know, like I think
it's a benefit that if you had a lot of people on, the more people you had on payroll in 2020 and 2021. That is where it matters. So if you have a company that has a lot of people, it's big money. Even if you have just a few people, any people at all, even for us at FARE Idaho, where I think we just had Katie on payroll in 2020, it was still a good chunk of, her salary back to us. And so it was a really great benefit. We do feel like, and one of the things we want to work on a federal level after RRF is looking at ERTC in some form becoming permanent. And I feel like it could potentially replace the tip credit, because I just think it's a better way to look at payroll and how we want to reward companies like ours for our employment levels. But yeah, for our company, as George mentioned, when I first sat down with our accountant, he's like, yeah, I need to look into this and understand it. And he gets back with me the next day and he's like, holy cow, you guys are going to have to sit down for me to tell you how much I think's going to be coming your way. And I was like, I know, I've been working on this. I know it's a lot. He's like, I had no idea. This is incredible. Anyway, so.
I mean, we have guys, and I'm telling you, like, I can't stress this enough. We have a board member whose accountant specifically said, you've had a banner year. This person has multiple restaurants, and they told them you don't qualify for it. And that's not the point. You qualify, you have to meet 2 conditions to qualify for it. So it doesn't have to do with your sales. If when I sat in this webinar, that was about an hour and a half long, and I'm happy to share that with you guys if you want to get more informed on this, but I've listened, I've spent hours and hours and hours informing myself on this. And basically this person from Tri-Merit said that when they spoke with the IRS specifically told them that it's like this program was specifically written to attend to the needs of the restaurant, the hospitality industry, right? Restaurants, bars, coffee shops, wine, tasting rooms, etc. So,
and just a quick note, we will be hosting another roundtable about this in probably about 2 weeks' time. So I'll make sure that all of our members actually get invited to that roundtable, as with all our other roundtables. So I'll send an email about that as a follow-up, because we'll be creating a flyer and doing another roundtable on it. All right, anybody sound or have any more questions that we can answer while we're all here gathered? Anything that FARE Idaho can work on that you have ideas? All right. Well, if you have any further questions, don't hesitate to just send me a quick email. It's actually, I put my email somewhere in the chat there, but it's just katie@fareidaho.org. And reach out and we'll just continue. We'll have lots of roundtables probably up through this winter. We've noticed that there's a pretty severe drop off in attendance during the warmer season as everybody gets really busy, especially with this labor shortage. So we'll have upcoming roundtables. We'll be talking about the historical license proposal. We'll host a roundtable on the 25th. If I get a second, I'll put that invite into the chat if anybody wants to attend that. And thanks everybody for coming. I don't know if I'll have enough time to put that in the chat, so I'll just make sure it goes out to all of you in an email. So thanks so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a great year.